It's 2008 and Robert Knox is about to have his breakout role. At 18 years old, he has just finished filming Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. He plays the quirky Marcus Belby, a member of the infamous Slug Club. But Rob's future, which was filled with promise and new opportunities, would be cut short by a single violent act in his hometown of Sidcup, London. This is Red Rum, a series of unfortunate events. These bonus episodes are just like your usual weekly episodes of Red Rum, but shorter. You'll get 2 or 3 stories that all have a similar theme. It was late evening in May 2008 when 18-year-old Robert Knox was out on a night out with his younger brother Jamie and a few of their friends. What was supposed to be a carefree evening quickly turned into chaos. An argument started and soon escalated between Jamie and another man, 22-year-old Carl Bishop. There was already tension between Carl Bishop and a group of lads. The group of lads included the brothers Rob and Jamie. Carl was known for his violent tendencies. He would later say that he was acting in revenge because he'd come off worst in a fight with the group the previous week. Carl had reportedly said, quote, "I'm going to come back next week and someone's going to die." After that initial argument between Carl and Jamie in the bar that night, Carl stormed out of the bar. He returned shortly after that though, and now he had 2 large kitchen knives with him. What followed was a savage attack. Carl lunged at every one of the group. He wounded 4 of Rob and Jamie's friends, and possibly another, although he was found not guilty in a court of law of that one person not wounding them. But even after that, he wasn't done there. He then went on to stab Rob a total of 5 times in the torso. He was filled with anger and malice, and Rob's friends saw this happening and they tried desperately to help him, but his injuries were severe. Within moments, Rob collapsed from his wounds and just fell on the floor. The emergency services arrived quickly after that, but Rob was rushed to hospital and he was in a really bad state. Shortly after he arrived at hospital, he was declared dead. There was, of course, no question over who had killed Rob. Carl was arrested and his case went to trial. It was at this trial that it was really revealed what Carl was like. He was a violent person, he had previous convictions, and on that night, as we know, he had deliberately armed himself with knives. In court, it came out that Carl had been a, quote, very angry child. He'd even attended anger management courses. He was excluded from school, and then he began getting in even more trouble, and by the age of 14, he was arrested by police and he had a criminal record. He then, at his trial, he went on to make the wild claim that, and there's no evidence for this, that he wasn't meaning to hurt anyone. He was just trying to defend himself. He never meant to kill Rob. He never meant to hurt any of the other 4 people that he stabbed. Now obviously makes no sense given that he was carrying 2 knives and that he left the pub to go and retrieve these. He had so much time to think about what he was doing on his walk to go and get the knives. Or if he felt the need to defend himself, if he felt so scared for his safety, then he could have just left. He didn't need to come back. The prosecution presented the truth, that Carl was someone who, quote, carries knives like others carry pens in their pockets. He was intimidating and aggressive. There was even an account from the day of the murder, just hours before it happened, where he had been harassing a woman in the pub. At the trial and after sentencing, Carl showed absolutely no remorse for his actions. And in fact, this is grim, when he had found out originally that Rob was dead, that he'd killed him, he said, and I quote, "Yeah, sweet." Carl was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 20 years. The stabbing of Rob is a part of an ongoing knife problem in London. I've spoken about knife crime a number of times on Red Rum, and that's a reason why it's so scarily common. The statistics show that it's only increasing, with knife crime actually rising by 20% in London this year, comparatively to the previous year. In honour of Rob's legacy, his family founded the Rob Knox Foundation, a charity that is dedicated to raising awareness around knife crime, and it helps the victims of violence. violence. The foundation has made a really lasting impact. And Rob's story doesn't end there. There's also this Rob Knox Film Festival. It celebrates British film talent and it really serves as a tribute to Rob's potential. He actually never got to see the Harry Potter film that he was in when it came out. He died just a month after filming. Both the charity, the foundation, and the film festival really continue to help others raise awareness of the dangers of violence and get to know about who Rob was. I'll link both of those in the show notes below. In the early hours of Sunday, the 8th of April 2018, the nightlife of Greenwich was bustling with the usual kind of weekend crowd. There's this place called Belushi's Bar. It's a popular spot because it sits on a really lively part of Greenwich High Road. It's right next to the station, so it would get people coming in for the atmosphere for sure, but it would also get people coming who were just passing by, who happened to be on their way from a train or just getting off. It was filled on that night with people enjoying really good company, really good drinks, but they were completely unaware that a violent commotion was just about to happen right outside. Ibrahim Bar, a 34-year-old father, had been out with his friends that evening. His brother's girlfriend Ellison was working at Belushi's Bar, and so it made sense to visit there and then see where the night took them. The atmosphere seemed really quite typical of a Saturday night, but there was a dispute simmering beneath the surface. What exactly sparked the confrontation that night remains unclear, but it was about to escalate into something tragic. Around 2:15 a.m, there was a fight outside the bar and it really reached its peak at that time. David Joseph Jones approached a group of people and things escalated, and it quickly turned physical. Witnesses described that the scene was chaotic. There was shouting, panicking, pushing, a kind of scuffle that has become all too familiar in this kind of late night city street. But then David pulled out a knife. Witness spoke about how Ibrahim was trying to break up a fight that was happening outside the club. CCTV footage then captures David pulling this knife out from his waistband. He then begins waving it in the air before slashing another 37-year-old man, and then he goes on to stab Ibrahim. He stabs him once in the stomach, and then he just walks away from the crowd. In confusion, Ibrahim struggled, probably trying to escape the attacker, and he kind of stumbles forward. It happens so fast that no one seems to be able to react in time. David has long made his escape through the crowd as they're trying to help Ibrahim. By the time emergency services arrived at the scene, Ibrahim was in a critical condition. Paramedics rushed to try and save him, but his injuries were just too severe. Ibrahim was pronounced dead. His family, waiting at home, would soon receive the news of his devastating death. As the investigation unfolded, investigators quickly honed in on David Joseph Johnson. As I said, it is unclear as to why that fight broke out initially, but witness accounts say that Ibrahim was trying to break up this fight. David was arrested at his home not long after the attack. He was initially charged with murder and possession of an offensive weapon. David's trial lasted 3 weeks, and eventually he was found guilty of manslaughter and grievous bodily harm with intent. He had pleaded guilty previously to this to possession of a bladed article. For those crimes, he was sentenced to 14 years with a 17-year extension on licence. The Greenwich community, already shaken by knife crime, was rocked by Ibrahim's death. In a city where this kind of violence is just becoming all too common, this incident really just kind of underscored how fragile life can be when there's this moment of rage that is allowed to spiral out of control. The ripple effects of the attack stretched far beyond that fateful night. Ibrahim's family, of course, is still grieving, and they're continuing to try and fight for justice while they attempt to make sense of this senseless act that took away the man that they loved. This is really, really tragic. His 4-year-old son, Calum, he was recently diagnosed with autism, and since his dad died, he has just stopped talking. Ibrahim's sister, Salamata, has launched a petition to the government on change.org that's demanding stricter laws against gun crimes. I've signed it, and I'll leave the link in the description box below if you'd like to sign it too. For those that knew Ibrahim, it seems like the loss was absolutely immeasurable. He was described by his family as a loving father and a good man who was taken far too soon. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Red Rum, a series of unfortunate events. If you have any case suggestions, leave them down below. Other than that, I'll see you in a few days for your regular episode of Red Rum. Bye. This is Red Rum, a series of unfortunate events.